Hey guys, today we're going to be going through a follow along routine to prevent back pain in gardening. You may want to set a device up at home so you can follow along, but once you get used to it you can just use these movements out in the garden, which is much more fun. We're going to start with a gentle rotation of the spine. If I was doing this with my kids, I'd say try and make your arms like an elephant trunk, and make them nice and loose and light. And I'm slowly shifting my body weight from side to side, getting into the hip. Trying to use maximal movements in rotation by lifting one heel as I turn and looking behind me, and that's getting maximal hip and spinal rotation. And now we're keeping the head still, which directs a little bit more force into the neck and the upper back. And from there, take the hips into a smallish circle, gradually getting bigger and bigger. I like to put my hands on my back and actually give my back a little massage, feeling each vertebra move as I go. So my hands are fairly active here, just pushing into each direction. And then a bee was just flying around my head, which is always nice to connect with the garden. Taking the hips in a much wider circle now, feeling a little hamstring stretch as I push the hips back behind me, leaning the back into flexion. Opening up the hips and the spine, few little clicks and clonks, and we'll take that circle from the hips down into the knees. I really focus on pushing my knees forwards over my toes, but only go to a level that feels right for you. There should be no pain with any of these movements, but if you think it's our hips and our back and our knees that are going to be doing most of the work if we're doing any physical labour out in the garden. Of course, we need to be able to reach the floor safely and effectively, so it's good to warm this up before starting gardening. I like to bounce around, just touching different parts of the floor around me with bent knees, so I'm not overloading anything. None of this feels hard. Once I loosen up a little bit, I'm going to be straightening the knees while doing those reaches. Here we're using a dynamic lunge, stepping forwards with alternating feet, reaching down to the floor as I go. This brings a little bit more balance as well. And here a light stretch to the adductors by going into a side lunge and reach to the floor. Just starting to think about the sorts of stresses I might be putting my body through when I'm gardening, and this is just waking up the brain and the body. So far we've been focusing on leaning forwards, but it's also important to have a good tool to unstick the back. So lean backwards, push your tummy forwards, and here we're doing it in a split stance to open up the back hip flexor, using the hands and the eyes looking up to the sky to help open up the hip into extension and the back into extension. Again, my hands are active here, pushing into my back to get a nice extension through the lower back. If you've been doing lots of work leaning forwards, this is a nice thing to do. One last little twist, and using my trusty fork or a spade dug into the ground, you can stretch the lats and the back. I'm trying to get a straight line from my arm to my torso, so we're getting shoulder flexion here, my bicep up by my ear, getting a nice stretch through the lats, and then I'm twisting through with the other hand, looking under the arm. One last little twist and a spin to bring it all through. My body feels light and energized, and I'm ready to hit it in the garden.